Welcome to the Multifamily 0 to 1 online meetup, where we discuss the best strategies to get started in apartment syndication.
Thanks everybody for joining us. This is our episode number 12. So we've been doing this for 6 months now. It seemed like we just started yesterday, but edition 12 today.
Yeah.
So we appreciate everybody that's joining us, the new folks and the folks who've been here with us before.
Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that this is an educational presentation and we're not making any investment recommendation. You should always consult with your CPA and attorney for financial and legal advice.
With that, let's just go from some introductions. My name is Marcelo Cazini, and my background is in IT. I've been in IT and management for 25 years. I have an MBA from Texas A&M. I'm a local CCIM member here in Houston, and I've done all the CCIM designation training, the commercial investment training, and I'm a multifamily investor, and I own and operate my own commercial real estate. And I also was involved in single family fix and flips before going to multifamily. So, Claudia and Martin.
Yes, this is Claudia and Martin Rubio. I was born in Colombia, South America, and now we are based out of Houston. We've been living here in Houston for almost 7 years, and I am a real estate professional. I have a degree in architecture, and the background I have in asset management comes from Colombia, where I was managing our own assets, and I hold a National Apartment Association certification that's called the IROP. And Martin, go ahead.
And I've been in the consulting world doing IT security consulting for over 25 years. Several of those, more than 18 of those with our own businesses, managing our own consulting business. And since we've been together, which is 16 years, we have been managing our own real estate assets back in Colombia and now here in the States. We started in multifamily real estate a couple years ago, and we have invested passively and sponsors on around 800 units in different markets here in Texas and in Arkansas. And we syndicated our last deal here in Houston back in December. That's pretty much our story.
Perfect. Danish, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a CPA in the state of Texas, but actually I'm not. Whatever advice I'll give it to you, you have to really consult your own CPA. But yeah, and also a multifamily investor. And for work-wise, basically, I have two full-time jobs. One is a full-time real estate investor. Second is a CPA practicing in deferred and partial taxation with a Fortune 500 company in engineering and power and plants. And at this point in time with multifamily front, I'm basically in a GP capacity for 966 units, totaling around 7 properties right now. And but there's one passive investment I did with the Lane Vegas. Other than that, predominantly everything is as a GP capacity. So that really takes up a lot of my time. So I would say it's more than a full-time job for me. And as I move into this career, I will leave the CPA practice behind. At this point, I'm just taking it both at the same time.
All right. Thanks, Danish. So does anybody, if you want to introduce yourself before we get into some of the questions, we were trying to meet more people, and so if anybody wants to go ahead and introduce themselves, now is the time.
Hey everyone, it's Clayton and Georgia Bounds. We live in the Houston area. We're invested passively in a few deals. We're very keen on finding a deal to sponsor or co-sponsor in the Houston market before the Rona rolled in. And obviously adjustments have had been made. I know a lot of you guys here, but if you don't know us, feel free to reach out. We'd love to connect with you.
All right, anybody else want to introduce themselves? Let's just, I just want to, before we go to our first question, let's just I always like to ask the experience of the folks here so we know how to tailor the questions. So if you can, this is confidential, just what's your experience in real estate? Are you brand new? Are you a single family landlord? Are you a passive investor, or have you already syndicated a deal, individual owner? And we'll just give everybody a minute, and then we'll share the results here. All right, so it looks like most people have answered. Let me share here. We have.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Craig.
Should we be wearing masks like Alex is?
No, he's extremely prepared.
Thank goodness.
At least the virus is not a computer virus, so I think we should be fine. All right, so it looks like we have one person here that's brand new to real estate, so welcome. And we have a few people who are single family landlords. The majority have done passive investment, and 3 people have already syndicated. So again, this is really the meeting for you. And if you're brand new and we're saying something that doesn't make sense, feel free to stop us, ask any questions. You can use the chat if you feel better about typing, or just raise your question there and we can stop at any time. And I think before Claudia asks the question there, let me just ask one here from the chat. Craig was asking if you have been able to be classified as a real estate professional even though you're a full-time CPA.
Yeah, so, well, there are 3 things, right? First is a passive investor. Second is an active participant. Third one is a material participant. So I'm in the category of active participant. So, I mean, and to answer the question, yes, you can, if you're fully involved in that and you are also practicing as a CPA. The CPA, there is no requirement for number of hours of practice, right? But so long you're taking the continuing education for 40 hours per annum, you should be able to carry your license with you. So you can do, but with real estate professional status, you would have more than those hours, 720 hours in any capacity in real estate to qualify for that status. But in my particular situation, I'm as an active participant, not a material participant in a GP capacity.
So then I think Craig was saying that you're supposed to have more hours in real estate than CPA. Is that your correct assessment?
Well, with CPA, the number of hours are not, they do not qualify like the way for tax purposes for real estate professionals. So these are very 2 different things. I don't know if he's asking about to maintain the license as a CPA or practicing as a CPA. So
no, I think it's to be a real estate professional. If you have to have more hours as a real estate professional than on your W-2 job, and I think Charles was saying 50% more of your time should be as a real estate professional than your W-2 job, right?
Yes, but depending on if you're claiming as a material participant, right, and you're getting the full benefit of a real estate investor. So you can take those deductions too, like, for example, if you're a passively investor, you can still take the entire deduction from the loss position that entity holds. And you can use it against your W-2 or whatever W-2 you're making at that time. If the hours are superseding of your W-2 job, then you'll be able to deduct those.
Okay, fair enough.
Does that answer your question, Craig?
Craig, you're muted.
So last year I was a dentist part-time and I worked 3 days a week, and I had to have more hours in real estate than I did in my dental practice. And so I had to have more than 750 hours, of course. And I had to have at least 1 more hour in real estate than I did in dentistry. And that's the first hurdle. And then after you pass that hurdle, then you go to the second hurdle, which is material participation, and you have to have 500 hours of material participation. I mean, I've read this thing over and over again. So you have to have more hours in real estate, and you can aggregate the hours, of course, all your real estate, passive or active. But you have to have more hours in real estate than in CPA. And it's really hard for somebody who's a full-time W-2 earner to have more hours in something else. So I was just wondering how you did that.
Yeah, I mean, see, with W-2, when you say W-2, you can still be a part-time and get a W-2, right? So how I did it, it's a little bit tricky because in my particular situation with the GP capacity, I qualify for active participation. So for that, there is another ruling for the income phases out. So before that phases out, the deduction that comes in, it's an entire calculation at the back end that transfers as a loss that get netted against your W-2 income and reduce your tax liability. So if you look if you look into active participant, then that's a different segment of the law, not a mature part.
Isn't there another caveat in there about percentage ownership, like greater than 10% ownership? And if you're an active participant with greater than 10% ownership, doesn't that put you in some other category as well? I don't know. Leave it to the CPA to figure out. Dinesh, you're the guy. I have a question since we're talking about it.
Yeah.
I hear that the super secret sauce for syndication is you got to have a CPA on your team. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a credential. So people, I get a lot of calls from the investors about their tax planning and consultation and stuff like that. And it adds a credibility on the deal that, oh, this guy must know something, you know? So yeah, it does help.
It does help. We can attest to that. We always go to Danish with questions, and he helps us a lot with checking out the financials and, you know, all the details. So yeah, it helps a lot to have somebody with that the knowledge while we learn, and we learn from you a lot, Danish.
Well, yeah, thank you. But you know, so I do this every day, right? So it comes very second nature. Looking at numbers, looking at taxes and stuff like that. It's just I've been doing it for a while too, so it just comes very second nature to me. Cool.
Yeah. Well, let's get started. We're gonna start with the questions we have prepared, but everybody feel free to keep interrupting and asking questions. We focus our meetup on the first syndication, how to get our first syndication, but it's good to have any kind of topic, or anybody who has any other questions, you're welcome to ask. So Danish, tell us about a little bit, what were you doing before starting in real estate?
Before multifamily or just before all real estate?
All of real estate.
Before real estate.
Well, I mean, CPA in taxation predominantly. That's what I was doing. You know, working with the Fortune 500 company. And I was also, before that, I was with Big Four Deloitte. I don't know if you guys know about it. It's a pretty huge accounting firm. So I was there, then got into industry as in a Fortune 500 company, and then I started looking into real estate.
And when you started in real estate, was multifamily your first option, or did you do any single family or any other kind of real estate investments? Or
well, I did one single family, and very very quickly I realized this is not my gig. I just wanted to scale, and the way you analyze deals is just very easy. So I wasn't getting challenged there at all. So once I started looking, hey, I really want to scale this thing, and just single family wasn't doing it for me. So I quickly realized that, and I just switched on to multifamily, and that's where everything started.
How did you find about multifamily?
Well, I was like, okay, well, what is multifamily anyway, right? So anything 4 or more than 4 units will become a multifamily, right? So I was like, okay, well, then you can do. Then from there, I started reading up on syndication. You can actually syndicate larger deals, you know, anything over 50 units and stuff. So then there's a whole analysis on it, right? And then the entire education is out there for you to look at. So I start deep diving into that on my own. And I was like, this is really interesting. So, and it was really jiving well with the stuff that I already do, as a taxation professional. Yeah. So I was like, this is really cool. So I kept more digging into it, and I realized that I actually really like this. So that's how everything started with the multifamily.
And what about multifamily attracted to you? Like, what were the most the things that attracted you the most about multifamily?
Well, I'm a very extrovert guy, so I love talking to people, right? One of those things, like especially networking and creating relationships, that's one of those things that I love doing that. Second is like the way you analyze it, right? And the way you look at the exit, the way you look at the whole taxation structure behind it, especially on larger multifamily deals. All of these things are really aligned to things that I really like. So I was like, you know what, this is something I really would like to pursue. Because a lot of boxes were ticking. So I was like, this is a very, very good idea to move forward with this thing and see how that goes.
Right.
And,
usually, sorry.
Did you have, to get started, especially for somebody starting now, how did you change your life in terms of routines and financial mindset, and how did you adjust having a full-time W-2 job and making the time to become a real estate investor?
Well, I'm a little bit of an intense guy, if I like something, I go at it, it's not like you may be lacking some time, but you make the time for it, right? You can do it. It's not like you stop watching Netflix, right? So there's so many things that you can carve out and focus on things that you really want to do. So this is my personality. Throughout my life, if I've wanted something, I really go for it. And I just like focus a lot onto that particular goal. And I'm also a very single task oriented kind of a guy. So if I pay my focus on one thing, I just keep on doing that until I become successful in that. I believe if you have that kind of an attitude, usually you'll be able to get things done. It's just the way it is.
Yep.
I think universe align everything, and once you focus on that, right?
Right.
What kind of education did you get when you got started? And what kind of recommendation you have in terms of education? Did you just try to go and learn by yourself? Did you join a group? What kind of education did you go through?
Well, there's several pieces to it. Education-wise, it's not that hard. I mean, especially coming from a taxation background, you look at analysis all the time, so it's not a big deal. But there's so many other components to that too, especially building up your team, for example, right? Like if I decided that in order to get a mentor, I would have to have some kind of a team to go with it. So if you don't have that, then it would be like much more of a steep, steep. Like it would be higher. It would be much more higher steep to get there, right? With the mentorship or with any form of education that has more ways of networking and getting your team together and your vendors together, then you'll be able to kind of like curve that towards your favor, right? So that's what I decided, that I think education, and especially the relationship that you can make through that ecosystem would have been much more of a better suited for me to move up quickly.
So following up on the team, which we've talked about that several times, and every time I talk to someone about how to get started, I try to emphasize that creating that strategy on how you're gonna create your team and how you're gonna approach that first deal, that's where all the success lies, right? So when you were figuring out your first team, like I don't know if it's the same team you're doing now for the latest properties, but for that first one, what did you give more priority to? Finding partners, finding investors, finding lenders? What was your strategy to building that team successfully for the first one?
I think all of the above. I mean, when I started this, I was like, I put on a piece of paper that these are the things that I need in order to get to a deal, right? So you work all at once. I mean, you may be going a little bit slower, but you still have to work on all these like, for example, if you're looking at the deal, okay, well, who's going to co-sponsor that, right? You got to be networking to find a co-sponsor or a partner, right? So it has to go hand in hand. And it has to be consistent amount of work. You know, you just cannot go one time and networking, next thing, you know, you're not doing that. And you're looking at one deal and doing one tour, and next thing you're not doing other tours, right? So you have to be consistent in every way possible in order to get to that particular goal that you want to get to, right?
Awesome. So once you had your team figured out and you said, okay, I think we have what we need to go pursuing our first deal. What about the property? What was your criteria for looking at that first property? Like maybe size, location, market, those kind of parameters.
Yeah. Well, we had criteria that I exactly developed for myself was something along the lines of like under 5 million, right? And anything under 70 units, and it has to be in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So somewhere in the Dallas metro area or Fort Worth, right? So that was that, right? Other than that, I was not looking anywhere else, because the more you look, it's gonna cloud your judgment a lot, right? And it just gets basically it's spread you too thin, and you don't want to do that. You wanna be in a containment, look at it in that controlled fashion, and just like go for it. That, I mean, once all these checks are good to go, then you just go for it. Basically, that's how I see it.
Okay. And then at that time, how difficult was it to find that first deal? How many deals did you analyze, or with your team, how many deals did you look at, and how difficult was that negotiation for the first one?
Well, it's kind of funny. It was my second deal, actually. We look at the first deal. We did the tour. At the same time, we were looking at the second deal, and that second deal was the deal, you know?
Wow.
So that was that. Usually people analyze a lot of deals, you know? If the numbers were making sense, I was moving forward, you know? Then if the numbers are making sense, things are good. If they're maybe not 100% good, but maybe 70 to 80% good, I'm moving forward, you know? So that's how I decided. Otherwise, I could have, the second deal, I could have made any, I did have thoughts that, oh, maybe not this, maybe not that, but it was just all this mind, you know, play tricks at you, right? And that's, you just have to discard that. If everything is checking off, you know, and at least 70% to 80% things are checking off, you should move forward.
Yeah, I think you have to understand what are the things that no matter what happens, you're going to be able to make them work. And what are the things that you have to work away?
Faculties, you know, you're not going to die, right? I mean, what's going to happen? It's like, you got to trust your faculties. A lot of times we do stuff and then we autocorrect it as we go into it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing 100% good. A lot of people are just behind sidelines because they just find bad things in every good little thing that is available to them.
Yeah.
That's a very good advice for all the people who's looking for their first syndication, because I mean, that's part of the fear, but that's a good approach. Like understanding that you're not gonna find 100% a perfect deal. You have to just play with it and try to find, like you said, 70%, 80% things covered. That's a very important thing.
And a lot of times we already know that we are fearful, you know, but we are just not brave enough to counter that fear, because we all have that, right?
No. And Craig is asking, are you actively looking for new deals at this time? Like, I assume during this COVID crisis?
Yeah, we are always looking, pretty much, you know, as even while we are closing, we are still looking at the deals. So I'm glad that I have great partners who are always hungry, you know, always looking at new deals. So yeah, we are still, if the numbers are making sense, we will move forward with that too. So we already have a criteria set up for the COVID-19. If that satisfies our requirement, we'll move forward. Actually, we had a meeting 3 days ago regarding how we're going to move forward with acquisitions now under these circumstances.
So what are some of the underwriting adjustments that you've decided to do given the new environment that we are?
Well, our criteria has been changed. We are going for smaller deals right now. And if the numbers are actually working, you know, because you know that how lenders are doing, we're going to have more reserves for it. We're going to have to raise more capital for it. So if that is not disturbing our the number of the percentage of our returns, we will move forward with that. And we want to raise somewhere between 1 mil to 1.5 mil. So that's where we are at this point, because in this environment, raising money is not that easy either. So that's why we're not going to go for a bigger deal at this time.
So how small of deals are you guys looking at now?
Like somewhere around, I would say under 7 million.
Okay. And in Dallas, how many units that's typically going right now?
Well, it depends upon which side of Dallas we're talking about, right? But you know, I would say under 100 units.
Under 100 units.
Yeah.
So there are deals out there, because there are properties out there, because Martin and I, we're not looking right now. We're focused on Fairfield Cove. But are you finding people selling out there in this moment?
Well, there are very few. We do have a very good connection with Marcus and Millichap and other brokers out there in the market. So we are getting deals, and if the seller is extremely desperate, we will see why he's desperate, right? So we're analyzing those numbers, right? But we are not buying everything is available out there, but if it makes sense, we'll go for it. That's for sure.
Yeah, we've kept in touch with our own relationships with our brokers here, and even though we're not actively pursuing anything, they're telling us there's very few deals out there. Everyone who was on the market ran away. There's a lot of buyers, but the sellers are not still understanding that the market shifted and that they need to switch the prices. So I think it'll take a little bit longer, but yeah, if you get lucky and someone has to sell now.
Yeah. I mean, you still put an LOI out there, right? And see if they get it, right?
Yeah.
They're out there looking for people like Elaine, the CCC certified COVID closer.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So going back to, sorry, go ahead, Marcelo.
No, I was just gonna say, for Alex was asking, if you were to start now, like he's saying, like as somebody starting now, given the current environment, what would be your recommendation for somebody to break through now, given the more difficult financing that we have, the different scenario in terms of the market, and if you were like starting right now to try to go for your first deal, what would be your suggestion?
Well, here's the thing, you know, there's so many things in this multifamily arena that you can actually work on to get started, right? At this point in time, you would want to work on your analysis skill, practice a lot number of deals out there. Second is like start talking to like online conversations with your Facebook group, or networking through online areas, right? And at the same time, also try to develop certain relationship with your attorneys. Call your attorneys if they're willing to talk to you at this point in time or not. And property management, you know, try to give them a call. They may not even talk to you, but just still try it, you know, things of that sort. Try to maintain certain or create more relationships at this time, right? And practice. And then look at the deals with the brokers that they are throwing at you. If the numbers are making sense, send out an LOI, you know, something along the lines of that. But I would really work on the foundation right now, which is basically your networking, developing your passive investors database, and working with the brokers and creating relationships with them, you know, things of that sort. You can actually really solidify those relationships right now, and actually practice a lot. The faster you can analyze the deals, the better it is, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so going back to your first deal, in terms of time, how long did it take you since the moment you started looking for a deal until you found it?
Well, I would say within 2 months, I would say we got the deal. And I mean, got deal under contract. And then we closed after 2.5 months, I would say. So, yeah.
Cool.
I mean, yeah, back in 2018, that was, yeah. I mean, this is like, this is definitely very fast. Not a lot of people get it that quickly. Some people just get lucky, whatever. But I guess we were like really focused and really wanting it. I think then we got aborted with that, I guess.
Was there any particular characteristic of your first deal that you were going after, that you knew that, hey, this is the right deal for us, everything, all the boxes check? And how did you figure that that was the deal that you were really going after?
It was satisfying the criteria, most of it, and then we just moved forward with that. It was not 100% at all, for sure, but it was pretty close to 80%. So me and my partner just went with it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And what was the characteristics of that deal in terms of location, number of units? How did you co-sponsor with somebody who already had more experience? It was like everybody was brand new? So tell us about
that's
the
a
structure
kind of
there.
funny story. So it's the deal. It was in Fort Worth, and so that was a good location. Second was 68 units. So it was under 70 units, and the price range was 3.8. So that was pretty good, 205 million. So we toured the property, and me and my partner, we were like, okay, well, who's gonna lend us the money to close this thing, right? We have to have a co-sponsor for the first deal, because lender would not lend to us. We're not going to be able to raise that much amount of money, 3.2 mil, to raise the whole thing, right? So we were like, no, actually the raise was actually 1.2 mil. So we thought that we would be able to do it, but we weren't confident, because that was our first deal, and who would trust us? I mean, nobody knew us. And second of all, lenders have no idea. We have no background for anything. So we decided to look for a co-sponsor, and we had some bad experience in that. You know, I don't want to name anybody here, but we had some bad talking points with some people. So it did not pan out really well. But then I invested with one of my partner, Aline Villegas. Back then, he was syndicating another deal in Grand Prairie. And then we kind of became friends, whatever. But then I just left it off that, and then he went to Philippines and all that. By that time, I got this deal where I was looking for co-sponsors. So I texted him that I have this deal that is pretty promising. You want to look at it? He was like, "Oh, I'm in Philippines, but how about you send me the details, and I will get back to you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he, after 4 days, he sent me a text, and we were like extremely worried that who's going to be co-sponsoring this deal to us. So, because things were not panning out. So he came back, he was like, "Danish, I'm in." So I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? So Alain Villegas he's very, back then too, he was really popular in the group. So he would help raise that funds for us, right? So from there, I introduced him to my other partner, Daniel Canterbury. And then from there, it's just rest is history. We raised it, and we never looked back after that. Then we became amazing friends too. So that's how he kept taking on new deals.
How long ago was that? What year was that?
It was 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have any recommendation? In that line, you said some of the people didn't go as well, and then you found somebody who went really well. Do you have any recommendation for somebody who is picking that co-sponsor, and what they should be offering, not in terms of money, but in terms of what they bring to the table, and what they can expect that the co-sponsor would bring to the table on the other side?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You know, the thing that is not very emphasized in multifamily, I notice, is the value of partnership, and people you're willing to work with, and really scanning for interest and their goals and what similarity they have in their personalities and stuff like that. That really is really important, because it's almost like a marriage. You're marrying somebody for 5 years or something, right? I mean, and you always keep in touch with them. So if your partner is not up to par or do not, it's just not in alignment with your goals, it's just not going to work out. So that's extremely very, very important. I mean, you cannot just have somebody because, oh, that person is very popular or may be able to close this deal for you. And that's that. I mean, that's just only one facet of the conversation. You gotta have you gotta almost have a checklist of these people to bring them on board, you know, because I've seen a lot of crazy things happen, you know, in these partnerships. So you gotta be very careful with that. And that's why I really believe the importance of partnership is just is the key. Because you may be able to close the one deal, but you may not be able to do business with that person again, because it just sucks. You know, every morning you have to see that email coming from him or her, right? So we don't want to live miserably at all.
And what were, without naming anybody, I think Andy was asking if you could comment on some of the negatives, that experience that you had with finding the co-sponsor, and maybe what are some of the things that somebody new can avoid in terms of the negative experiences there before you find the lane.
Well, I mean, the negative, I would say, okay, well, what is your value proposition? Like, what is the concept of reciprocity for you? Like, what do you value in relationship? If that is not come to par with you, then I would say that's no longer a relationship. So, in my particular things, I value things that are, let's say work ethic, for example, right? I would like to see the amount of work that I'm putting in, the other person should be comparable to that, you know? I mean, it's not like I'm going to be micromanaging them or anything like that. It's just like, you can just tell that this person is particularly putting in the amount of stuff that is needed, you know, to drive this whole thing. And what is their bigger goal? Like, are they just wanting to get one syndication done with you, or what they're trying to do? What is their larger goal in the higher capacity? So you gotta look at all these things, and once they get in alignment with that, then you move forward with that relationship. If not, then you just like cut them off and move forward to the next one. Because in my particular situation, the syndicator that we wanted to put on board was just not in alignment with, basically only a few things were in alignment, and the rest of us just all not good at all. Mm-hmm. So that was a sign from God, I would say, that, oh, that freaking person is not on my deals at all. So but we were very, very disturbed by the fact, because it was taking a lot of time, and we were on the gun to make the decision very quickly. But it was just happened, I guess, you know, that Elaine got into the deal, and then that's where everything got pretty good with that. So
I would say
it happened for a reason, I would say.
Yeah, I would say it's also helpful to have or discuss your partnership from before you find the deal. And let's say you're looking at deals, you're studying how to underwrite, you run deals by your potential partner. That's like your boyfriend, girlfriend period where you know each other. And then when you go to the deal, you already know how you work, how you complement each other. If something doesn't work, if there's no chemistry there, instead of just finding the deal and then go find your bride quickly to get married, right? So it's also important to give that networking the opportunity to show you who's actually a match to your personality and to your way of working and all of that. So that's great.
Yeah, and the chemistry is very important too. Some people have the chemistry matching, right? Even if they're working less, whatever, it's okay. You know, sometimes you take the burden. It's okay. You can move forward with that. But so long the chemistry is there, it's really important. If the personalities are not matching, I mean, you know, maybe that other person is like hardworking as crazy, but he just sucks, you know, when he talks or whatever, right? So you'd be like, you know, that's just not good.
Yes, that's true. So going to the underwriting and the analysis of the deals, do you have any techniques for quick analysis or tips or tricks when you first get a deal?
Well, there's something called back of the napkin analysis type thing. I don't really use that anymore. But once you analyze so many deals so many times with particular models, you just get good at it, right? And you can just right off the bat tell you like, hey, this is a good deal to move forward. It's not, right? So you plug in the numbers and you just like run it, and you know it's within 30 to 40 minutes. I would say you'd be able to know that you want to move forward or not.
And what are the steps you take for the analysis?
Well, first of all, you may want to drive up where the property is, just kind of check it out, see what's going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the condition of the property is, what kind of clientele you're going to be working with,
Mm-hmm.
The particular location, what's around that location, and all that. So you want to check it out. You come back, look at your P&L, look at your rental offering memorandum and everything, right? And then start looking at it and start tweaking the numbers from there, and then do the tour, come back and adjust the numbers again. That's how we kind of do it. Sometimes they're kind of back and forth, not exactly the same steps. Sometimes we tour the property in its entirety, then look at the numbers. Sometimes that happens too, because the offers are coming up sooner or whatever.
Right. In that process of analysis, when you look at the expenses, what opportunities do you look in the expenses to reduce or?
Well, yeah. So as a CPA, I'm like I'm looking at every line item for everything and every opportunities that I can see, right? So for expenses, right? There's what happens when you have number of properties across the board, you start to having these portfolio rates and stuff like that, and a number of things, right? So that's called scaling. When you scale something, you can reduce. There's a cost reduction to it on the other side of it. So I'm looking at every major line item that I could utilize to show a leverage of more properties, right? So, but other than that, I'm always looking for, all line items are important, especially the bigger ones that changes the impact on your NOI, right? I'm looking at it. I mean, when I'm working with you guys, I'm always like asking those questions that are just sticking out.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at these things and ask questions. Hey, why is that? And what's the way we can mitigate that and reduce it?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, I do it on the other income side as well, where, of course, the rental side of it, where things come to the market. Second is like, what other incomes opportunities that we can have that we can actually utilize that and bring up our NOI higher.
Yeah, that was my next question on the other income. Like, what do you usually try to implement?
Well, we a lot of things, for example, buildbacks are a huge advantage of increasing your NOI. And, you have pet fees out there, and you have pest control fees out there, parking lot reserves and stuff, which we are making pretty good money off of that too. So things of that sort, we do that. And RUB is a pretty good implementation. If you have all bills property, then there's always an allocation that you can do and get the money, at least like 80 to 90% of that expense that you're utilizing on your P&L, and that could become an income for you. So that's kind of, becomes netted out against that. So it still increases your NOI.
Do you have any particular example that you can share in terms of either reducing expense or increasing revenue on the deals that you got that perhaps, I know, because right now it's a very competitive market, a lot of people are doing the basics, and what are perhaps some of the things that you were able to do in terms of reducing expenses that your competitors didn't think about it, or increasing revenue that nobody really thought, that was not your vanilla analysis? Do you have any particular example on the deals that you were able to gain, and why, and what did you do to gain?
Yeah, so I give you 2 examples, pretty good ones actually. With the Martin, for example, we in a GP capacity in one of the Martin's deal as well. So now on our end over here, we have around like 6 properties in the Dallas metro. So our property tax consultant fees, for example, is usually very high with 1 property only. But once you have a portfolio rate, it drastically drops down, right? and you can actually extend it to, for example, Houston deal, and use the portfolio rate for that as well, right? So that's the reduction of the cost for your property tax situation, right? At the same time, like we do the same thing with our property management company fees, like management fees. We get portfolio rates instead of like just, you know, pretty high rate of 4% to 3.8%, 3.8 to 4%, but we are getting only 3%, right? So things of that sort that we always negotiating. And these are like big ticket items. So, and then a lot of times we do payroll situations too. For example, we have 4 properties in Fort Worth. So first 2 ones, Milagro and El Rancho, they're like almost next to each other, right? So we share a lot of like our payroll between the 2. So, and sometimes you use floaters in between the 2. So we reduce cost a lot of that over there as well. And then, you know, inherently, if one tenant is like not liking, one potential tenant is not liking Milagro, they may want to go to El Rancho. So our staff is sending to El Rancho, right? So there's like, we are trying to gather as much as opportunities in both of those properties next to each other. But if they want to go like a few miles further, we have Sunset Heights out there too. So they may want to go there as well, right? So so things of that sort, we're always looking for opportunities like that. And for income-wise, you know, like I mentioned about RUBS, and of course, having everything to the market as you upgrade, things put back on the market with the market rents. Also, we create units, you know, we, like if there's any possible way we can build up a unit, right? And we built up the unit, we increase another income out of that. So we did that in El Rancho, and then we are doing it one in Sunset Heights as well. And I think we end up going to do with the Oaks at 5 Mile as well in Dallas. So things of that sort. I mean, there's always opportunities to increase your revenue.
Okay, great. Yeah, those are good examples.
Mm-hmm.
So based on your experience now, would you have done anything different on your first deal?
I would say the first, no, first one was just very textbook type of thing. Everything was in order, and yeah, I mean, the conversation with our sponsor was just could have been done otherwise, but it happened for a better reason, I would say. That was that, and then in the second deal, we had to learn a few things that sometimes seller promises that, hey, I'm gonna get this thing done before we close. And they say they get it done, and then you trusted the seller that, okay, well, this particular situation, he would get it done. You trust that. And then after the close happened, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot some part of it, right? So you may always want to go check before the close. You got to have another inspection done before that thing can get really, really close, you know? So that's something I really learned. You cannot trust seller's word at all. You have to go check.
Yeah, that's a good point. And how long did it take you to? I mean, how long did you plan to stabilize your first deal, and how long did it actually take in reality, or to get your plan implemented?
Well, we with the first one, Milagro, we thought we would be able to stabilize in 6 months, but what happened in our occupancy went down the first time we bought it, and then slowly we creeped up. So within, I would say, 2.5 to 3 months, we got to a stabilized position. We started actually doing distributions by after 3.5 months of close. We started doing distributions as well. So we started stabilizing it for quicker than we thought we would.
And were you, after you got your first deal, were you immediately looking for other deals, or did you figure that you would be stabilizing
as soon as
first?
Milagro, we were on to another deal. Yeah.
And then were you guys like splitting the roles? Like somebody was focusing more on asset management, where everybody else was focusing on acquisition? How did you make sure that you were still implementing the plan while focusing on other deals?
In our partnership, something is called adaptability. We are very adaptable. If somewhere is lacking something, the other person will come and cover that. So let's assume if I'm really busy in asset management Daniel or Elaine might have been like talking to brokers already at the same time and getting into another deal. So that happens a lot. So while we are working on, as we are, because we already funded, we are just waiting on the close. What are we doing, right? I mean, we have time. So we are looking at deals, right? So we were, because Milagro was not closed, right? But we are funded, but we don't have anything to do. So we're gonna go ahead and work on another deal. So that's we start. We always start looking very quickly. Sometimes we just overlap too. You know, as we are closing one, we're closing another one. So
Got it.
yeah.
Great advice. That's great advice. I mean, having that drive and confidence, going to the next deal. That's not
Yeah, I
easy.
mean, you know, at the same time, it's like, that's just me, one person, right? I mean, I have two other people, right? So these two people are also pretty active people, right? So when you combine all of that, it just becomes kind of a powerhouse in a way, you know, like moving too quickly, you know? So we are, I don't know, we just kind of aggressive guys. We want to get things done. That's how we are.
Cool. Besides that synergy between the three of you, do you guys have any specific tools for market analysis or for being organized or anything else that you recommend people to use, or you're just old school spreadsheets and that kind of tools?
Well, yeah, right now we try to, as we are scaling, we're trying to automate a lot of things now. But yeah, we're using spreadsheets and all that stuff, but we have a plan to go into, especially for the investor management system.
Mm-hmm.
We want to go into that, and we may want to go into virtual assistants as well. And in order for us to you know, delegate those duties, the admin type of duties, and moving, we are doing other things that are much more profitable for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you think would be useful for people who's trying to get to the first deal, on the realm of like books they can read or podcasts they can listen to or anything they can use that you would recommend?
I mean, okay, well, I did not read that many books, to be honest. I mean, the more you read, the more your mind's gonna be like, and hey, books are amazing. I'm not saying books are bad. I do read books as well, but I would say don't get into the analysis paralysis type of things. The more you start reading it and you just become a magnet to that reading and you're not actually taking action, that is just like counterproductive, you know? So I would say, yeah, read, but take as or twice as more action as possible, you know, because that's where you learn way more than the book itself, you know?
Right.
So with the books, yeah, podcast wise, Joe Fearless is pretty good. And book, there's a book of Syndication by Joe Fearless as well. That's pretty good too, in order to get you started, kind of like getting the whole,
The concept.
from getting one to all the way to getting multiple deals, and see how this business is all about. It's a pretty good insight, actually.
Okay. Well, we have just a couple more minutes left. I don't know if anyone has any questions for Danish, anything that you guys want to ask about first deal or any other deal, his experience.
Yeah, and I know Alex is still at work, so Alex, you can do some sign language there.
No,
all right, and all right, if we don't have any other questions, we can kind of start wrapping up here. So let me share some couple reminders. So we always meet on the first and third Wednesday of every month. So our next meetup is going to be May 20th. For that one, we'll focus again on how to be a better passive investor, how to attract a passive investor. So we always try to bring an experienced passive investor there. And then we'll be back on the first Wednesday, which is going to be June 3rd, with another 0 to 1 for syndicators. And then I want to share Danish's contact information here. Hopefully, Danish, if people have any additional question, want to know how they can work with your team, hopefully it's okay for them to contact you, correct?
Yeah, sure. Sure, definitely.
All right, and thanks, Danish. We really appreciate the time you're taking with us. It's always great to hear how other syndicators are doing, especially on the market right now.
Yeah, and you know, market is gonna get better too. So, but I would say you gotta have a tenacity. Just keep on doing things that are important, and once you do that, you just you develop a habit of doing things. Right? When you get things done, it will just create some momentum, and that's what you're looking for.
Thank you for watching this week's episode of the Multifamily 0 to 1 Meetup. Join us live the first and third Wednesday of every month.